Peace, y'all. Peace, y'all. Hello, world. It is your girl, the real Tony Hickman,
Mm.
and we are back with the Ryan Rich and Tony Hickman show. I am so sorry I missed y'all last week, but my boy had me covered. And if you did not see that amazing show, you have to go to our YouTube and watch it. But
Yes.
it's definitely like uber important, really a great subject. And it's so amazing the guests that come on our show and share their stories like that, because it really opens up what the general public goes through, and it's not being talked about. So
Hmm.
on that note, go ahead, take it away, Ron.
All right, man. On that note, as my girl said, we are here with my friend and coworker, Mr. Joey Falgood. He is a board operator at WWL slash producer radio, Intercom Communications, and we met each other in what 2016.
16, yeah.
Wow.
2016, yeah, but he's been in radio a little longer than I have, and he goes
Eons.
by,
Yeah.
yeah, eons since I think the days of
I was
Hurricane
there.
Andrew.
Marconi was hanging wires together. No, I'm picking. It's
Yeah, my man has been in radio for a long time, and over the years I've learned a lot from him, and I'm honored to have you on our podcast tonight.
Yeah.
well. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
He's just an all around cool dude and trouble starter, and I learned all. I learned most of my bad habits from this man. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Yeah. So, all right. So, man, tonight we bring you on the Ryan Rich and Tony Hickman show because we focus on people with disabilities and different things of that nature, as you know. And tonight is going to be a little different because you weren't. Well, I'm not going to say different, but your disability kind of just came about due to some complications with diabetes. Am I right?
That's correct. Yep. Diagnosed with diabetes in 2008.
Mm-hmm.
I took care of myself as well as I could, and in 2011, after during the summer, we moved back from the Houston area,
Mm-hmm.
and I I did during the moving process I slipped and fell. I didn't think I'd hurt myself,
Mm-hmm.
but I actually started a process called Charcot foot, which is if
Mm-hmm.
somebody has had problems with diabetes,
Mm-hmm.
can sometimes happen on one limb or the other, but most of the time it's the feet, and it makes the bones extremely brittle. And so it started breaking the bones in my ankle and my right ankle. And by the time uh, October 2015 it rolled, or August 2015 it rolled around, it had essentially pulverized the entire right ankle.
Oh,
So
Wow.
wow.
I lost all the bones in my right ankle.
Mm-hmm.
They tried healing it. It didn't work. They had me on a no contact cast for a while,
Mm-hmm.
where I couldn't put any weight on it. And during that process, uh, I ended up staying overnight at my mom's apartment in Marrero, and I hit something with one of my feet,
Mm-hmm.
or with my left foot. I had something on the underneath of my toe. Must have been a nail or something on the carpet tack or whatever, but it
Mm-hmm.
ended up infecting my left foot. And within 48 hours, it got so infected that it was running red streaks up my leg,
Wow.
and ended up with the right foot where I couldn't walk on it, and the left foot I walked into the old University Medical Center,
Mm-hmm.
the old charity hospital, or the interim charity hospital, and they wouldn't even let me go sit back down after they triaged me. They put me in a stretcher and brought me into the emergency room and said, "It's either your leg or your life."
Mm.
Wow.
And,
Wow.
uh, and I was in ICU for 2 weeks. I was under a coma for a week. They put me in, and actually, what's funny is I was in and out during the coma, and I knew I was amputated. They had told me they were going to take the entire leg. So when I woke up and found out that it was below the knee, I was ecstatic. But then I looked over, and they had me in an induced coma, and
Mm-hmm.
look over, and it's Propofol that they have me on. And that's the stuff that killed Michael Jackson. I had a tube in my mouth and I couldn't talk. So I grabbed the closest piece of paper I could write on. I started putting MJ with question marks, wanting to know what the heck's going on. They put me under. And all of a sudden, I heard somebody reach over and did. And then I don't remember anything after that. So I think they put me back out.
All right.
Oh,
So
wow.
I'm a stop you right here, Jordan. I'm gonna let y'all know that my man is always the constant joker. So he's always making light of the most difficult situations. So I'm proud of you because of that. And I relate to you a lot in so many ways because my grandfather was a diabetic, and he actually had bypass done on his leg, and because he had some blockages in the leg, and he also had lost a toe because of it. So I can really relate to you on that because I was around most of the time when he was going through his treatments and different things, and my grandfather, he wasn't always the best eater. He ate what he wants, so he kind of like suffered the consequences when it came to being a diabetic, man. And
my uncle as well. He's actually gone through an amputation too. He had the same story. He has diabetes, but he also had to get an amputation. So,
Well,
yeah.
it's amazing how quickly that it can get out of control, and sometimes, in my case, I work myself into the ground. In fact, my wife and I have had this conversation a lot. Before I got Charcot foot, I was working full time as a radio engineer, and I was on 24/7 call. There were times when I'd be in the doctor's office waiting to see the doctor, and I'd get a call of, Joey, this is broken. Nobody else knows what to do. This needs to be fixed right now. We're off the air. We're losing money, and I'd have to get dressed and leave.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Wow.
because it was either go take care of it or lose my job.
Right.
And I don't blame the job. I could have had the cojones to say no. I'll be there as soon as I
Your
can.
life is more important,
Yeah.
right?
At the time, it was more. I was worried about the job and worried about feeding
I
my family.
understand.
And that was I made that decision. I freely admit that, and that was a wrong decision, but I made it, and I've paid the consequences. But I told you guys about the Charcot foot on the right. The left was the one that got amputated first, and we fought with from November through the end of January. We fought with the left trying to save it. I got a thing that looked like a medieval torture device put on me called an external fixator. That was 2 iron rings around the bottom of my foot that had pins going into my skin, trying to stabilize the ankle so it would heal. And instead, it caused an infection on where all the pins were on my leg. And they would cure the infection on one side of the leg, and it would rotate to the other side.
Yeah.
And they tried everything. I don't blame the doctors; they did everything they could. And then January 27th of 2012 is when they cut the other one. And it was scary because at least with one leg I couldn't put that much weight on it, but at least I had a little bit of normalcy because I had a foot that I could put down. But when I lost both feet, it was having to learn everything over. I had to learn to use the bathroom, take a shower, get in and out of the house, get in and out of my bed. I had to learn all of it over again.
Yeah.
So I have questions too. Go
ahead, Tony. You got it.
Yeah, my question is, and you probably already know the answer, Ryan, but for everybody else, because I don't know it either. But do you have like the prosthetic legs, or do you use?
I do have prosthetics. It took me 2 years. It took me 2 years to get them.
Okay.
Right now, talking to you, I don't have them on. I'm sitting in my recliner at home. But when I'm out and about, Ron will tell you I have them on. If I know I'm going to walk a long distance, I won't try to walk the whole thing. I do have a power chair that I own.
Okay.
So if I know that I can walk around and I'm not going to hurt myself, I will walk. I can walk around the studios, as Ron will tell you, but most of the time I use my chair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mainly because, as Ron knows, at WWL, the men's restroom is on the other side of the building from our control room.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's essentially like running an obstacle course to get to the bathroom and back
Right.
in some semblance of time.
It's like a maze. And I'm gonna just add this little tidbit in that. Like when I first met him, he just used his chair, and he was like, Ryan, I can walk. And I'm like, really? So I don't know what it was. It was an early Saturday morning. I had just got off from doing my shift, and I still hang around the studio. And he was like, dude, I can walk. And I'm like, wait a minute. So when I seen him stand up, because all I knew was him sitting down in a wheelchair. When I seen him stand up and walk for the first time, I was like, oh wait, it kind of like threw me for a
Right.
loop, and I'm like, okay, wow, so I was kind of taken back with the fact that, here he is, he doesn't have legs, and I'm thinking that I have a serious condition and I have it, worse. And I'm like, this dude is getting around with, two prosthetic legs and moving quite well, so yeah.
Well, one of
Yeah.
the things too is, and I'm sure you've heard stories like this before.
Mhm.
I've had to hit every obstacle there is on the way. Everything's the hard way for me.
Mhm.
I lost my legs, and the day after I came out of the hospital after my second amputation, they dropped my Medicaid because I
Wow.
had gotten on disability.
Mhm.
And the disability made it, since I was on disability, I would no longer qualified for Medicaid. And if, as you know, with the disability process, it's 2 years before you can get on Medicare.
Yes.
And at the time, it wasn't an economy like it is now, where it's a little bit easier to find a job. It was hard to find a job, especially a man with no legs who
Mhm.
had to
Right.
get around in a chair. So I couldn't get any other type of medical assistance. So for 2 years, I wasn't able to get prosthetics.
Mhm.
So I actually, 4 months before the 2 year mark, I got on as a student worker at the University of New Orleans because I was going. That's the only real silver lining of this whole thing, is I ended
Mhm.
up back in school. So I was able to get my Bachelor of Science in Interdisciplinary Studies from UNO. But
Wow.
I got on. Yeah, I got on as a tech support guy in the computer department at UNO. And so that got me where I was able to get on what they call premium plan Medicaid, which you have to pay to get Medicaid.
Mhm.
And so my prosthetist, who's been working with me from the beginning, even when I didn't have insurance, she still took care of me,
Wow.
helped me get shrinkers, helped me get stuff to keep my stumps where they were in condition, so that when we
Right.
did get prosthetics, we'd be ready to go. Um, so she worked her butt off, and in the 3 months between getting the Medicaid and getting Medicare, she made me a pair of prosthetics, got them fitted, got them on me so that Medicaid had to pay for them. And
Wow. That
those
was
are Sherman
amazing.
tanks, and those are
Right.
Mhm.
Sherman tanks. Uh, what's funny again, and you guys understand this, I had doctors tell me I'd never walk again. I
Yeah.
Hmm.
was I was too big. I had too much butt. There was no way.
Mhm.
And I looked through every prosthetic company in the area, and I found Miss Duro, Bernadette Duro, and she was making it out of Kevlar and carbon fiber. And I know a lot of them do, but she was doing a video on it, and I called her and I said, I want to talk to you because everybody says I can't walk. I'm too big. And she came look at me and she said, horse crap. And
Mhm.
she built me a pair of prosthetics. I'm on my fourth pair right now and about
Wow.
to go into my fifth.
Now with
And
the prosthetics, I wear as all of y'all know, I wear AFOs. I want to ask you, like, we have to get our AFOs updated every 7 to 8 years, and I just like finished my first pair, and
mm,
about 2 weeks ago, I got fitted for another pair. So I'll get my not prosthetic legs, but I'll get my AFOs in a few weeks.
mhm.
So do you have to get fitted for them ever so
Oh
often
yeah,
because the
because
body
there.
changes?
Well, with ours, with the prosthetics that I have, especially as large as I am,
Hmm.
and and Ron, I've lost weight.
Yes, sir.
Losing weight, of course, changes the shape of my stumps,
Hmm.
and the more active I am on my stumps, the more they shrink and change,
Hmm.
because the muscle changes and that changes the shape.
Right.
Yes.
So to a certain point, I can compensate with prosthetic socks that fill in that the
The
gap
gap.
between. Yeah,
Hmm.
but after a certain amount of time or a certain distance, I can't fill it
Hmm.
fill it anymore safely. So that's why since I've got my first pair, I've been, like I said, I'm going on my fifth.
Hmm.
So and well, by that I mean either a new pair of sockets to fit my stumps, or a whole new. Or this will be my second brand new set of complete feet. Because the shafts are made of titanium and the feet themselves are made of a composite. That the reason that my prosthetist picked it is because she went to a prosthetic convention and they put it in a vise and flipped it back and put about 5,000 pounds of pressure on it and didn't break. And she said, if that
Wow.
can do that, it can hold him. So
Okay.
in mind,
Right.
so
Right.
and
Wow.
the scary part and the scary part for me was getting back on my feet.
Mhm.
Even though the prosthetics is still, it's having to learn to walk.
Yeah.
Right. And
And I'll be
not being in pain in the process, I'm
that's the other
sure.
part. Oh yeah, well the first day I didn't care about the pain. I had so much adrenaline I didn't feel it.
Right.
But when I started going to physical therapy, you have to go to physical therapy to learn the
Yes.
difference because it's not like walking on normal feet.
Right.
And doing the exercises with physical therapy for the first 3 months, well, I mean, it was painful as all get out at first, but then it got better. It got easier. Now I can walk, and with the exception of endurance, walking for long periods of time, I can walk no problem. I can walk without a crutch now. At one time, I had to use a walker. Then I went to a crutch. I have a cane now because my wife does not like me walking without anything in my hand in case I lose my balance. Uh,
Good
but
wife. Good wife. Good wife. Yes.
but um, but the thing is, one of the things, and I've told Ron this story before. When I came out of when I came out of the ICU,
Mhm.
when they finally let me wake up, one of the first things that hit me was the movie Shawshank Redemption.
Mhm.
Get busy living or get busy dying.
And it's one or the other. Yep.
Yep.
Right.
And so I wasn't going to sit on my excuse me. I'm not going to sit on my ass and feel sorry for myself.
Right. Right.
Exactly. Now I
I
want to ask
started
you. I
looking
want
for
to ask you
go
this.
ahead.
I want to ask you. Like, okay, so you know, you were a quote unquote, as they say, normal, able-bodied guy who did whatever he wanted, moved around, and just kind of like lived life. Uh, what what was the psychological effect like when you realized that you had to deal with uh, living with amputated limbs? How did
Yeah.
that work out for you?
Well, for me, I had to. I spent about 3 months in a nursing home because I mean we lost everything. I mean I'll be honest with you. We had when all this happened in the process of me being in the hospital, we lost the house. If it wouldn't have been for our family, the kids in Brunello would have been homeless, and they had no place to bring me that was large enough to be able to accommodate me with a wheelchair.
Mm,
So they had to put me in a nursing home when I first got out, and I had to learn everything myself. I had some physical therapy help from the nursing home, but it's one thing for them to show me what I'm supposed to know, but it's another thing for me to really do something that works for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and again, like I said, I guess God put me in that right mental state because for me it was all about I got to get busy living. I can't sit here and feel sorry for myself because I lost the leg. And then in that January or February, it was I lost both legs. I still have to figure out how to make all this work. I have to figure out how to get back in track and get back in my life. You know,
so I have another question for you
yes, ma'am.
too. If you had to give anybody advice, like who doesn't have diabetes yet, but they may be borderline or facing it, like what is your advice to that person as far as what they need to do to help redirect their life?
Well, I'll tell you right now. To be honest, a lot of it is when the doctors tell you that you need to exercise, need to watch your diet. You got to do that
Yeah.
because once you hit a point of no return, like I did, you start having drastic consequences. It's one thing to have just high blood sugar, but when that high blood sugar turns into something like Charcot foot, then you start having neuropathy in your legs or your hands.
Hmm.
Once that starts happening, you can't turn that back. There's no
Right.
getting back from neuropathy.
Mm-hmm.
It's no, Charcot foot. Once it happens, that's it. You've lost that. I mean, you might not lose the limb, but you're going to lose the ability to use that limb the way you normally do.
Hmm.
And so, I mean, But
So
diabetes is in my
prevention is
family. Oh,
definitely
yes, ma'am.
necessary. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
diabetes is nothing. There's no joke. And the thing is, I worked hard for a couple of years at trying to make it, take care of it, and then it just got the better of me. And again, don't put your job ahead of yourself.
Because
Yeah.
You
life,
have to make
guess
yourself a
what? If
priority.
something happens, they are still going to have to find somebody to fill your position, but you cannot come back and replace your life, you
That's,
Right.
know?
that's correct.
So,
And I think
wow.
in what was it 2017, maybe like a year or two later after we met and after you got back in the radio biz, you also I don't want to get too personal here, but you also went through a situation with your hand. Am I right?
Yeah. One of the things that, because of the because when I ended up in the hospital, even though it was only 48 hours after I got whatever happened underneath my toe, I ended up being septic,
Mm-hmm.
and it destroyed my immune system.
Mm.
And so the infections continued to happen. And right now, my infectious disease specialist has put me on antibiotics to stop that from happening. And I don't mind showing everybody, that's my wrist.
Mm-hmm.
What happened essentially is infection got into my wrist and started eating away at the cartilage and bones in my wrist.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they ended up having to do is they ended up fusing the remaining bones in my wrist together. I have titanium plates in my wrist and screws holding the bones together, and all of it's now just one giant bone. And so what you see here is actually a flap of skin from the back of my arm that they took and twisted and put over because it poked a hole through the infection poked a hole through the top of my arm.
Oh my God.
So
Wow.
to
Wow.
to make sure that it didn't continue, the infection didn't continue, they had to cut around the infection and then put skin over the top of it, and then they grafted skin from my leg onto the underneath of my arm to be able to heal that back up.
Wow.
So that was 14 surgeries and 6 weeks in acute care, an LTAC as they call it, essentially being in a hospital, but kind of a combination of a hospital and nursing home.
All right.
Because they wanted to isolate me from any type of infection or cold, or I was on contact precautions for 6 weeks to make sure that I
Wow.
didn't get another infection while it was healing.
All right. So we gonna pause for a second, and I'm gonna tell everybody. If you want to find out more information about Ryan Rich and Tony Hickman Show, man, hit us up on all our social networking websites. Ryan Rich and Tony Hickman Show webpage on Facebook. Hit us up also on Instagram on the Ryan Rich and Tony Hickman Show. Hit my girl up, the real Tony Hickman, and we'll pass along any information that you want to find out about the show, new topics that we got coming up, and everything else like that. Now, Joey, I'm gonna switch gears here. Being
Sure.
that being that you've had diabetes for so long and you've dealt with all these challenges, present day, what would you say has changed you and has changed your outlook on your life? What do you focus on more now, being that you've been through so much in the past, becoming a diabetic and dealing with some of the illnesses that you've had and different things of that? Like, what's changed you?
Well, one thing that I try a lot more is I try to do more things with the family. I try to spend more time with my kids, and I try to put work on the back burner,
Mm-hmm.
which is something I didn't do before. Right now I telecommute from home. Besides for being disabled, I have a job that I work tech support for a company distributes audio nationwide for
Mm-hmm.
radio stations. I do part time at WWL for Intercom, and I also do my own daily show. It's an 1 hour show that my wife and I do every day at KTIB down in Thibodeau. Uh, so
Wow.
um, radio's in my blood, and
Yeah.
what's funny is, God has put me in those places where I needed to be. In 2016, you might remember the flooding in Baton Rouge
Yeah.
that summer, and when the flooding was happening, KTIB is a small little station, a little mom and pop station, didn't have anybody to cover any of the flooding damage or how to get people supplies, and so I'm friends with the manager there, and so I ended up going in and helping her by giving out distribution points and things like that. Next thing you know, her and Bernella have contrived a way of keeping me on the air. So I've been there ever since. And I don't say that in a mean way. It's just that's the
Right.
way things happen.
Yeah.
And it's fun for me because I get to ham it up a little bit, and it's great because Bernella and I are doing it as a team. And I mean, we met in radio back in 1991.
Mm-hmm.
So we've been together ever since. So it's fun. It's what I love doing. But you know, I get to do more stuff. One of the things I always wanted to do is work as or become a ham radio or amateur radio operator.
Mm-hmm.
I've now gotten all 3 licenses that you can get as an amateur radio operator. I'm part of the Louisiana version of the American Radio Relay League, which is the Amateur Radio Society for the United States. I'm active with them. I help do emergency communications. In fact, this past Saturday, after I got off the air at WWL, I went and participated in what's known as Winter Field Day, where we try to make contacts with other amateur radio stations all over the country. And we made contacts from Rhode Island all the way to Maui.
Wow.
So it's a lot of fun for me. And the thing is, again, I try to figure out what I can do with my limitations. You know,
and you can do a lot. Really, it's not a limitation at all once you figure out how to maneuver, you know?
Oh, absolutely. So, you know, well, the thing is, I wouldn't try to become a full-time radio engineer again.
Yeah.
You know, where I was responsible on 24/7 call, because it would just be too much. But if somebody needs my assistance, needs help, I'm there, and I've been called on before to help them fix things, and it's something I like to do. So I'm still living the best life I can under what I can deal with, and but I've also learned that family and taking care of myself is more important than my career.
Yeah,
you know,
that's awesome. I think that's a great lesson. That's a lesson that hits a lot of us at different points of our lives, you know? So, yeah.
And that's what people don't understand, man, about the business of radio. I started working in college radio in 2010. And it's like, once you get bit by that radio bug, you know, you can't leave it alone. And I'm me and Joey are prime examples of that. You know, like, you know, we get tired, we get aggravated, but it's still something about the radio business that keeps us going and keeps us energetic about it and everything, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, man, Joey, I just want to say thank you, my brother, for, before we close out, thank you for being a support system to me all the time at work.
Support system for me too, so don't think it's a one-way street.
Right. And Tony, you got anything to say before we get up out of here?
Well, I was going to ask him that, like, do you have any last words of encouragement, inspiration, or anything like that you want to share with our audience?
One thing that I want to remind people is it's never as bad as you think, and you never know how strong you are until you're tested.
Right.
So don't feel as though you can't make it, you can't get past it. There's always a way to get past the hurdles in life. You just have to believe in yourself and be willing to look at the options that are available to you.
And also, before we get up out of here, Joey, man, tell people where they can contact you, email address, social networking.
Well, they can find me. They can find me on Facebook and Twitter at N5TWR, November 5 Tango Whiskey Romeo. That is my amateur radio call sign. And they can also find out about the show that we do in Thibodaux. Look for fueledbygumbo.com. That's our official website.
I love that name, Fueled by Gumbo. Boy, that's just as Louisiana as it get, ain't it?
Absolutely.
Right.
That's awesome.
It was great.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you for being a guest. You are like highly appreciated, and I know you're gonna touch many people because so many people have diabetes or are like borderline, and they need to hear your story. They need to hear that. So thank you for sharing. Y'all gotta know everything is temporary. No matter what we go through, we bounce back because that's just what we have to do. You're gonna bounce back, or you're gonna just sit there and suffer. It's a choice. What the movie said, Joey? What is it?
Get busy living or get busy dying.
Get busy living or get busy dying, baby. That's just it.
Right.
So yeah, thank y'all so much. Any last words, Brian, before we close out?
Oh, Joey, man, I will see you this weekend, my brother.
Absolutely. 7 o'clock in the morning.
Oh man,
Oh,
they don't
we.
they don't know about the early mornings and the late nights that we've had. Yeah, man. So I want to say thank you and I appreciate you, man. And much love as always, man.
Wonderful interview. Thank you so much. All right, y'all.
All right, peace.
Peace.
Bye.